New Flyer is a North American leader in transit bus design and manufacture. The diesel hybrid Excelsior 40-foot low-floor transit bus, designed and manufactured for the San Francisco Municipal Transit Authority, is an example of this leadership. This presentation will familiarize service personnel with the disc brakes on the Excelsior 40-foot hybrid bus. The operators and maintenance guides that accompany the vehicle are the final authority with respect to safety, maintenance, and operational parameters. Consult the guides or your supervisor should you have any questions or require additional information. 3 types of headings are used in the maintenance guide to attract your attention. Danger indicates a hazardous situation which, if not avoided, will result in death or serious injury. Warning is used when an operating procedure or practice, if not correctly followed, could result in personal injury or loss of life. Caution is used when an operating procedure or practice, if not strictly observed, could result in damage to or destruction of equipment. These headings will be used in this presentation where appropriate. You will need a number of tools from the special tool list to perform inspections, routine maintenance, and replacement of components of the disc brake system. Disc brake operation. During brake application, the push rod of the brake chamber extends and moves the actuator lever in the brake caliper. This input force is transferred by an eccentric roller bearing to the bridge section of the caliper. This force is then distributed by the bridge and 2 threaded tubes to the tappets. The tappets apply force directly to the inboard brake pad. Once the running clearance between the brake pads and brake disc have been overcome, the reaction forces are transmitted by the sliding caliper to the outboard brake pad. The clamping force of the brake pads on the brake disc generates the braking force. When brake pressure is released, the return spring within the caliper forces the bridge section along with the threaded tubes and lever back to the starting position. An automatic adjuster mechanism is used to ensure consistent running clearance between the brake pads and brake disc. The adjuster is mechanically connected to the lever and will operate each time the brakes are applied. The running clearance between the pads and brake disc increases as the brake pads wear. This increased clearance will allow the adjuster mechanism to rotate slightly. A drive chain transfers this movement to both threaded sleeves, which rotate inward equally. The rotational inward movement of the threaded sleeves and tappets effectively takes up the additional running clearance as the brake pads wear. Raise the vehicle to working height and properly support it with jack stands. Remove the wheel and tire assembly. For the purposes of this presentation, the balance of the video will feature an axle and brake assembly removed from the bus for better views. Pad removal. Release or cage spring brake. Depress the pad retainer and remove the pad retainer pin. Pull off adjuster cap using tab, taking care not to disturb the shear adapter. Using a box end wrench, fully wind back the tappet boot assemblies by turning the adapter counterclockwise. Slide caliper outboard and remove the outboard pad and remove inboard pad. Inspect rotor and all caliper seals before installing new pads. Pad install. Check that the tappet boots have been fully retracted.
Okay, that's all the way in. Okay. Wire brush, I'm going to get in there.
Clean the caliper as necessary. Slide the caliper outboard as necessary and install the outboard pad. Slide the caliper inboard as necessary and install the inboard pad. Install the pad retainer in the caliper groove. Depress retainer and install the pad retainer pin pointing downwards. Install the washer and spring clip onto pin.
again, we put a little.
Turn the shear adapter clockwise until pads contact rotor. Turn the shear adapter counterclockwise until 2 clicks are heard. Apply and release brake, ensuring the hub turns easily by hand. Lightly grease a new shear adapter cap with white lithium base grease. Install the cap with the tab facing the 5 o'clock position. Tappet and boots removal. Raise the vehicle to working height and support as per shop requirements. Remove wheel and tire assembly. Remove the brake pads. Rotate the adjuster clockwise until the tappets extend approximately 1.18 inches or 30 millimeters from the caliper surface, allowing for full extension of the tappet rubber boot for insertion of the removal tools. Note: caliper service can be performed on or off the bus. For the purposes of this presentation, the caliper has been removed from the wheel assembly. Use a screwdriver to remove the boot location ring and allow the wedge fork to be installed. Take care not to damage the inner sealing face. Now, remove the boot and tappet with the fork from the threaded tubes.
And that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to pull this tappet off.
Remove the old tappet bushings. Inspect inner seal surface for damage. If the inner seal surface is damaged, the caliper must be replaced. Threaded tubes. Inspection. The tubes must be extended for proper inspection. 1.18 inch or 30 millimeters max. Check for rust, corrosion, or other damage. If threads are found to be in good condition, apply small amount of white grease to threads. Retract tubes using shear adjuster by turning counterclockwise. If threads are found to be damaged or worn, the caliper must be replaced. Installation of tappets and boot assemblies. Note: this procedure can be done with caliper on or off vehicle. Make sure the tubes are retracted. Verify that the sealing surface in the caliper for tappet boot assembly is clean and free of grease. Install boots using the long press-in extension for positioning and pressing into place. Position a tappet assembly onto each tappet bushing. Using the press-in tool in a reversed orientation with the press-in extension towards the threaded tube, press the tappet onto its tappet bushing. Verify that the tappet is free to rotate once pressed on. Inner seals replacement. Fully wind the tubes back into caliper. Clean the seal area. Remove inner seal with a screwdriver. Note: take care not to damage sealing surfaces. Clean inner sealing area. Inspect tube threads by extending them using shear adapter counterclockwise, making sure not to exceed 30 millimeters or 1.18 inches. Grease threads with white grease and retract the tubes into the caliper. Fit each inner seal onto threaded tube. The inner seals can be replaced with the caliper on or off the vehicle. If the procedure is performed with the caliper on the bus, the short strut of the seal positioning tool is used. If the procedure is performed on the bench, the long strut of the seal positioning tool is used. Inner seals replacement. Caliper off the bus. Remove the tappet bushing if not already done. Position the tool with the long strut in the proper position. Make sure tool is guided over the spigot of the tube. Fully press in the seal by rotating tool with an open-end wrench. Verify inner seal fit by threading out the tube 4 or 5 threads using the shear adapter turning clockwise. Note, the inner seal should not turn. Guide pin seals. Remove the brake chamber. Affix the mounting fixture to the brake. Use a sharp punch to remove the cap from the caliper bush by punching a hole in the center and prying cap out of bore. Remove the retaining ring from the rubber boot on the upper guide pin. Pull both guide pins out of the caliper housing. Use a screwdriver or similar tool to push out the inner rubber boot from the guide pin bore. Removing brass guide bushing. Mount the man installer punch and press-in sleeve assembly on the brake caliper with man spindle trapezoidal thread and collar nut with trapezoidal thread. Pull brass guide bushing out of the brake caliper. Removing elastomer plastic guide bushing. Mount the man installer punch with press-in sleeve on the brake caliper with man spindle trapezoidal thread and collar nut with trapezoidal thread. Pull elastomer guide sleeve out of the caliper. Installing elastomer plastic guide bushing. Push the man press-in sleeve onto the elastomer guide sleeve. Mount the elastomer guide sleeve and man installer sleeve on the caliper with man spindle trapezoidal thread and collar nut. Press the guide sleeve into caliper until the stop is reached. Apply grease on the guide sleeve. Installing brass guide bushing. Mount the man centering sleeve with the open side facing away from the caliper. Assemble the man brass guide bushing installer punch on the caliper with man spindle trapezoidal thread and collar nut with trapezoidal thread. Press brass guide bush onto the caliper until the stop on the press-in sleeve is reached. Indenting the brass bushing. Insert the indenting tool into brass bushing from the outside until the stop is contacted. Screw the indenting bolt into the indenting tool until the stop is reached. Unscrew the indenting bolt and turn the indenting tool through approximately 60 degrees of rotation. Repeat the indenting process a second time. Remove the indenting tool. Installation of inner rubber bellows. Insert the folds of the rubber bellows into the man press-in sleeve.
Side the tool. And then now you can see I'm pushing directly.
Position the man press-in sleeve and installer sleeve on the brake caliper with man trapezoidal thread and collar nut. Press the bellows into the seat using no more than 70 inch-pounds or 8 Newton meters torque on the collar nut. Use grease supplied with the repair kit and grease parts to be installed. Install the guide pins into the caliper.
I'm going to put this in here, push it all the way forward. When this constantly goes back and forth like this, we've got another little ring.
Install the plastic bellows retainer or washer. Installation of inner rubber boot. Remove the caliper from the supporting fixture. Affix caliper to carrier assembly, making sure that no air is trapped behind the large guide pin seal. Install new caliper mounting bolts, ensuring that the inner boot and retaining ring are properly seated. Torque bolts to 133 foot-pounds or 180 Newton meters, then tighten an additional 90 degrees. Install new brass cap on large pin bore.
Gotta be really careful here.
Install brake pads. Install brake chamber.
Back on.
This concludes the pad replacement and caliper service maintenance orientation on the Excelsior XDE 40-foot bus. Should you require further information, consult your New Flyer service manual or your supervisor.